All right, on Thursday in Mastery Connect, you guys read about the California Gold Rush. You also read about gold mining, and it was a letter. And your objective or your focus was to be able to integrate information from both of these texts. So you started with the first question, and this question was, which of these ideas is presented in both texts? That was the first question that you guys solved. A. Women worked as cooks and laundry washers near the gold mines. B. People lost money by making bets. C. The living conditions were poor for the gold miners. And D. California's population increased during the gold rush. Well, you can see I've already annotated and circled the best answer is A. These ideas were in both of the texts that you read. Okay, number 2. Which idea do both of these share? You can see I've already circled C was the strongest answer. People moved to California to find gold, and most of you that completed this assignment chose that. These were not missed. Most of us did not miss these. Number 3, which of these statements best describes passage 2? Well, the best answer you can see is circled D. Passage 2 is a first-hand account of the California Gold Rush, and that's a review from the week before. Now, the next question focused on 2 new passages. They just labeled them Passage 1 and Passage 2, but both of them were about a common topic. And that topic was corn. Okay? Now I want you to notice that I've highlighted something and annotated or wrote my thoughts. In Passage 1, I highlighted in green some information about the Native Americans and the corn and what they did with corn and cornmeal. In Passage 2, I did not see any detail about Native Americans at all. So take a moment to see that. Okay? And now I want you to look at this question, number 4. This was a commonly missed question. And we had about 50% of us got the best answer and about 50% of us missed it. It was about even Steven. Okay? So let's look at it. It says, which of these statements includes information that can be found in both passages about corn? Well, you can see the best answer is B. Corn can be used to make many food products, including soft drinks, ice cream, bread, and cakes. B is the strongest answer. A lot of us chose A. A says corn was a useful crop to the Native Americans and early settlers. Well, A was not found in the second passage, so A cannot be circled because the question asked about what was found in both. Now B says soft drinks and ice cream. That was not found in both, but bread and cakes was, making it the strongest answer. Zyra, you might want to log off and come back in. And then number 5, this was not a commonly missed question. You can see the best answer. It says, which of these statements is true about both passages? The best answer is C. They both contain facts about corn. So just a quick review. It was a pretty short, quick check, but you were supposed to solve it last Thursday. All right. So today I want you to know what our focus is as we move into a new week of learning. I want you to also know why. So on your screen, our plan for today, fill in my blank using the chat bar. It says, today I am practicing how to determine different points of blank so that I can compare and contrast the point of view from which different stories are blank. I'll know I've got it if I compare and contrast points of view, including the difference between first and third person. Very good, and thank you for setting our purpose and thinking about our focus for today. I want you to know why we're looking at this standard. This isn't new, but I want you to notice this graph from our Case 21 assessment. You'll see there's a yellow arrow under RL46. That stands for point of view. Now you might be thinking, well, Miss Daniel, there's a lot of green on RL46, and there is a lot of green. But I want you to notice that I've drawn a blue box. All of these are RL standards. And if you look across just in that blue box for RL, you're going to notice that this was the weakest RL standard for us. And since it was the weakest for RL, we want to spend some time thinking about it. We want to spend some time looking at it. It doesn't mean that it was low for everyone. It just means that it is worth our time to go back to and to look at and to move into mastery or to stay in mastery. So once again, this is why we're focused on comparing and contrasting the point of view. Now today we're going to begin with a little bit of a different strategy. Datavius, if you'll go ahead and mute for me, it looks like maybe you're not muted. Okay, so I'm going to try this today, and I want to be honest with you guys. I'm a little nervous about using Kahoot electronically. It could go awesome. It could also be an epic fail. And if it is, we will work with the best we can, okay? But I want to try it, and I think it can work, okay? So we're going to start with the Kahoot today. We're going to see how much we already know. Now, our data tells us that we already have a good understanding as a class about point of view, and only some of us need some extra help. So I thought it would be a good standard for us to go ahead and practice with, but I need you to hear me say something. Whatever you do, do not end the Google Meet. So whatever device you're using, maybe it's a phone, maybe it's an iPad, maybe it's a computer, do not close the Google Meet tab. Stay connected with me as we play our game of Kahoot. And that's the same thing I'll do too. So I'm not going to disconnect from you. I'm using an iPad, so I will simply leave Meet open as I also join the game of Kahoot. So do not close our Google Meet to join it. So what I'm saying is Google Meet still works even if you're using a second tab on your device. And I hope that makes sense to most of us. So I would like for all of us to join. I'm going to display what you need to see. I want to remind you of a couple of things that we've learned this year about point of view, and then we're going to try something a little bit different than what we've done in the past in our virtual learning. So please use your chat bar to fill in my blank. Point of view tells us who is telling the blank. First person, narrator is a character in the story, uses I, me, my, our, we, and us. Second person, like a conversation, usually to tell you how to do something, and it uses blank. Third person, the story is told by a narrator who is not in the story. And when we have third person, we have to think about, is it limited, where the narrator, who is not in the story, tells us the thoughts of one character, or is it omniscient, when the narrator, who is not in the story, tells us the thoughts of many characters? Very good filling in my blank here. Now today our challenge is going to be understanding the difference between first person and third person specifically. So on your screen, your notes say first person tells the story through his or her point of view, through their eyes. Uses keywords like I, me, and we. So this would be a lot like a first-hand account, which is why I want you to practice that journaling every day that we talked about at the beginning. And then third person, this is an outsider's view. So the narrator does not know the thoughts and feelings of any character, necessarily of any person. They might be limited, they might be omniscient. And then on the right side of my screen, you are going to see there's some notes that you already have in your interactive notebook that give you steps. Steps like read the passage, cross out that dialogue, and we spent a lot of time learning we had to look outside of the dialogue this year. Dialogue includes spoken words or internal thoughts, and if we accidentally look inside that dialogue, we will miss it every time. And then after we've crossed out the dialogue in our mind, then we focus on those pronouns, and if we decide it's third person, then we have to think about, is it limited or is it omniscient? And your independent practice today is going to ask you a lot about limited and omniscient. Now, as my screen updates, what we're about to do is going to be uncomfortable for some of you, but I'm looking for ways to meet individual needs even though we're learning virtually. So I've gone through all of your individual case data. This was taken right before spring break. And I've created a list on the screen. You're going to see a purple list and a blue list, and I've typed those names. These are students that were in Mastery in RL46, okay? Now, if you are in Mastery in Point of View, you're about to be given a choice to do something. But it is your decision, so it is your choice. That's what the word choice means. It is optional. It is not required. So if your name is in purple or blue, then I want you to stay logged into the Google Meet, but I want you to use a new tab if you choose to. While you listen to me in the Google Meet, I want you to also work on this Quizzes Point of View extra practice because you have already mastered Point of View. Now, if you do not see your name on the screen, I do not want you to do this assignment right now. Now, you can do it after our Google Meet, but I don't want you to do anything but listen. Now, once again, I don't want you to close your tab out because there's going to be some things you need to hear me say. So notice the green box says student choice based on case data. Use a new tab if you choose to. And this is the quizzes located in the virtual learning section of Google Classroom. Now, if your name is not on the screen, do not do that, okay? And no, Harper, this is just if you choose to. It is not going to give you extra credit. It's just some more challenging practice with Point of View. No, Angelina. The answer to your question is no, ma'am. All right. So once again, that's completely your choice. If you don't want to do the quizzes right now, you can simply listen as I'm teaching. If you choose to do it, you're going to listen, but you're also going to choose to open a second tab and do this quizzes with some more challenging questions. Okay? All right. So for those that are focused with me, and even if you're listening in the background as you do your quizzes, I want all students to still stay logged on as we continue. And we're trying this today, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so let's focus on comparing points of view now. As you can see on your screen, it says, comparing narrators and their thoughts and feelings about what happens will help you develop a deeper understanding of what characters and events are doing or thinking or saying. That's important when we're thinking about the character development, when we're understanding the character and being able to characterize them. So it's not just a separate skill, it is important. So fill in my blank using your chat bar. Remember, if you were on my list and you're on a second tab, you would not fill in my blank, but everyone else will fill in my blank. In stories, the narrator is the person who tells the blank. The narrator always has a point of view, or how he or she thinks or feels about story events. Some narrators are characters in the story. They experience what happens and are called first-person narrators. Other narrators are not characters in the story. They look in from outside the blank. They are called third-person narrators. When you read, pay attention not just to what narrators say, but also how they say it. Their points of view will affect the way you interpret what happens and why. And then it tells us, study the cartoons below. For each one, decide who the narrator is. So I'm going to zoom in on that cartoon, and let's look and see who is the narrator of the first one, and then who is the narrator of the second one. Let's see if we can figure it out. In the first part of the cartoon, it says, as I walked down the hall, my friends stared at me, but I wasn't at all surprised. I wanted everybody's attention, and I'm noticing that she has an apple on her head she's trying to balance, which tells me that she must want everybody's attention. So when I think about who is the narrator of this cartoon, I'm thinking the narrator might be that character. That character is inside the story. So I think it might be first person point of view. If you think I'm right, say I agree in the chat bar. Thank you. So now let's look at the second one. Moving to the other side. And let's think about who is the narrator of this second one. As Martha walked down the hall, her friends stared at her. She wasn't at all surprised. After all, she wanted their attention. So I'm thinking about who is the narrator of this one. Well, I think this is not someone inside the story. So it wouldn't be first person. And I don't see any of those clue words you, but I do see words like her, words like she, Martha. These are all clues that tell me it might be third person point of view. So the narrator might be someone outside of the story, and not a character inside the story. If you think the narrator is third person, would you say yes ma'am in the chat bar? Good job. I'm noticing a lot of people saying yes ma'am. Thank you. So now let's think about comparing and contrasting the difference between first person and third person. And remember, at the beginning of our lesson today, that was our focus, understanding the difference between first and third person. Well, I'm thinking that the first person narrator used words like I, me, my. She tells her own story. This is the meaning of first person. And I'm thinking that third person uses clues like Martha, her, their, and tells someone else's story. And I'm thinking that they're alike because they're both telling a story and the events are very similar. So notice at the bottom of my screen, there's some important academic vocabulary words. Words like narrator, that's the person telling the story. Point of view, that's what point of view or perspective is the story told from. So who's telling it? Compare, how is it alike? Contrast, how is it different? First person, that's a character in the story like I, me, my. Third person, someone outside of the story that tells it. That would be more like he, she, they, it, and characters' names. Okay, so you've seen a couple of examples so far. Now I want you to look at this text with me that's called Just a Bunch of Rocks and Bones. And I'm noticing as my screen updates and loads in the blue box, there's something important that we need to know. It says, think, what is the point of view? How might it be different if it were told from a different point of view? So that's the question I want you to think about. It's our guiding question. It's essential, it's important for us to think about not only what is the point of view, but also how might it be different if it were told from a different point of view. I'm noticing that my screen is a little bit delayed. Thank you, there it goes, good. So please fill in my blank. Just a Bunch of Rocks in Blank by Watley Hamish. Good, I'm noticing a lot of people typed bones there. Paragraph 1. You're going to notice as we're reading, I've underlined some clues. I was looking forward to my first field trip at my new blank. We were scheduled to visit the Museum of Natural History, which sounded extremely interesting to me. That is until my new friend Barry started complaining about it. As our bus traveled along the highway, Barry insisted, I'm telling you, LeBron, we went last year and it's mostly just a bunch of boring rocks and blank. What a snoozer. Paragraph 2. Oh no, I thought. There's nothing worse than being bored, especially when I was really looking forward to something. Suddenly, the trip seemed ruined. Moments later, our bus pulled into the museum's parking lot. We dragged ourselves outside and trudged up the museum blank. Paragraph 3. Sweating under the hot sun, I glumly looked around. Then I noticed a statue of small, perky dinosaur bone poking its head out of some bushes. Hey, I thought, this might not be so blank. Paragraph 4. A tour guide met us and shepherded our class around the museum. Barry was right in one way. There were a lot of rocks and bones. But what rocks? We viewed cool fossils of creatures that had lived 1,000,000 years ago. We also saw blank gemstones and meteors that had fallen from space. And the bones were even better. One gallery featured skeletons of mastodons and a saber-toothed cat. Another displayed dinosaurs, including part of a T-Rex. Already, I was hoping we'd come back to see more next year. But I don't think I'm ready to tell Barry that. Good, thank you for helping me fill in the blank. I'm noticing those bones were sparkling. So already I can tell, based on what I've underlined, that you might be predicting it might be first person point of view because there's some clues like I, my, me, we. Now I'm also noticing some of those clues are inside of dialogue, so we're going to be careful to look at the ones outside of those quotation marks. Remember, dialogue can also be thinking. So when he says, oh no, I thought, and then he thinks, we have to look outside of that part too. So let's go ahead and focus more on how might it be different if it were told from a different point of view. So if his friend told the story, do we think he would have been as interested in what he saw? What do you think, Miss Hogue? Do you think if his friend told the story that he would have been as interested? She says maybe so. So I'm thinking about how it would change the events of the story. I'm thinking about since he's seeing it for the first time, he might have more details in his writing. He might give me more about what he's seeing, whereas his friend visited before, so he might not tell me that the rocks were sparkling or the meteors that he saw, because he might have a different point of view or perspective. Good. Now let's think about some questions that we can answer as we're thinking about this text and as we're thinking about the point of view. So the first thing we have to decide is, who is the narrator? Well, the narrator is the person that's telling the story. The things a narrator and other characters do, say, think, and feel also often tell me the point of view. Well, I'm thinking the narrator in this text is LeBron. That's the person telling the story. So now I'm thinking about number 2. Does the story use a first person or third person narrator? And I'm going to explain it by giving some evidence from the text. Well, I'm thinking the story is written from first person narration. I know this because the narrator LeBron is a character in the story. I also know that LeBron uses words such as I, my, we, and our, and those are words found outside of the dialogue. These pronouns signal first-person narration. And now I'm thinking about, how does LeBron's point of view about the museum change from the beginning of the story to the end? Well, LeBron at the beginning, he didn't know about it being just rocks and bones. So I'm thinking LeBron would look forward to seeing the museum. He's looking forward to it, but he also becomes worried about being bored, and then eventually he ends up enjoying his time there. That point of view was definitely inside the text or given by the narrator or the author. Now, we are not finished with point of view, but I do want you guys to notice that the clock that our time today is almost over, and I want to take some time to explain what you're expected to do independently. And thank you, Will, for that feedback. It was supposed to be challenging for those that were already in mastery. Now, if you're working on a quizzes, I need you to listen because everyone is expected to do the independent practice. Okay, wait, Joseph. Okay, wait just a minute, guys. I realize you're ready to go, and it won't take me but just a second. But I want you to know that in Google Classroom, you guys have been given Tuesday's independent practice. When you click on that assignment, it will load the directions for you to log into Mastery Connect and use these codes. Okay? And you can see it on your screen, but you can also go back and see it in Google Classroom. You are expected to complete that assignment today. These do expire. So if you do not do it today, it will expire tomorrow. So you need to take care of it today, and then we'll go over the best answers, of course, on Thursday. All right. So guys, if you have a question, please feel free to stay, or if you just want to talk to me for a second, you can do that as well. If you do not have a question, you can simply log out at your convenience. I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you on Thursday. Bye, guys. Good job. Bye, guys. Have a great day. Goodbye. Goodbye. Y'all have a great day. Tomorrow's your birthday. When we meet again.